Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today to the competition debrief webinar for the 2020 Build to Scale program. Right off the top, I do want to identify the target audience for this webinar, and that is folks who applied to the 2020 Build to Scale but were not successful for funding. So the voice you're hearing is mine. My name is Lindsay Cox, and I'm the program manager for the Build to Scale program, and I'll be the one presenting today's content. Today, we'll be covering overall competition numbers, reviewing where some folks fell short in technical requirements, discussing program alignment, identifying common issues within applications, highlighting some future funding opportunities, and discussing next steps. So right off the top, let's cover the numbers and where we landed. Overall, for the Build to Scale program, we had a grand total of $35 million available for funding this year, with $26 million identified for the Venture Challenge, $5 million for capital, and $4 million for industry. And as you may recall, we conducted the Build to Scale program this year with a two-phased application approach. And the first phase was concept proposals. We received 609 total concept proposals this year for the Build to Scale program. Of those, 138 were encouraged and 471 were discouraged. Now, just as a reminder, being encouraged or discouraged did not affect your ability to go ahead and apply for funding through the full application process. And for full applications, we did receive a total of 148 applications. Those were made up of 93 for the Venture Challenge, 40 for the Capital Challenge, and 15 for the Industry Challenge. And all that being said, we finally landed at our 52 that were selected for funding this year, made up of 29 Venture, 16 Capital, and 7 Industry. A complete list of those who were funded this year is available on our website, which is just eda.gov/OIE. You can check out that full list there along with their project profiles in case you're curious. But as you can see from those top line numbers of 609 concept proposals to 52 that were finally selected, this was an incredibly competitive year and we were very much oversubscribed for funding. Now let's get into the applications, leading off with technical requirements. As always, we strongly recommend reading the NOFO thoroughly and not waiting until the last minute to submit. If you're just gathering your technical documents on the final day of the application window, it's going to be very challenging. So some common technical mistakes we saw really broke down into two buckets, which were missing documentation or missing or incomplete match, both of which we'll get into in more detail. I did want to highlight, though, right off the top that you can take advantage of the pre-submission technical review, which is actually where you submit all of your documents into our office and we let you know if you're missing anything from a technical standpoint. So again, we're not commenting on any kind of quality of the documents. We're just saying, yes, you have all the documents here and they are signed appropriately, your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Now, you also cannot wait until the last minute to take advantage of that opportunity. There is a deadline for that and it is identified within the notice of funding opportunity, but that option is very much available to you and will help you avoid these technical mistakes. So first up, I just want to talk about intergovernmental review. This is a requirement for some states, but not all states. However, it is up to you, the applicant, to review the above website and identify whether or not your state participates in SPOC requirements. And it's not just even your state. It's it's every state for your service area. So if you're covering a multi-state region or have counties in multiple states, you do need to adhere to the SPOC compliance for each of those states involved. And so we strongly encourage that you get an early start on that, you check, and that you're very thorough, particularly if you do have a multi-state service area. And next up, we had organizations failing to provide some supporting documents, including for-profit entities that applied but did not provide evidence of their eligibility as an economic development organization or a public-private partnership. So just a reminder that our program is unique in that for-profits can apply, but they do have to be an economic development organization or involved in a public-private partnership. And you also have to provide those documents when you submit your application. A complete listing of eligible entities is available in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and you can check that out there. And I also wanted to highlight that there is a technical checklist included in the NOFO. It's Appendix D, and you can utilize it to ensure that you do have all of your documentation. And again, we also offer that review internally, but you do need to submit your documents several weeks in advance so we can perform that check. Next up, we'll discuss match, which as a reminder can be cash, in kind, or a combination of both. So we actually saw several disqualifying elements within match this year. Common mistakes included projecting program income and using that as match, or not having dollar amounts included in your match support letters. So it may be a letter that's intended to be match support, but there's no dollar amount to tie it to the application. As a reminder, match has to be committed, available, and unencumbered, which is why something like projected program income does not work, because it's not available and unencumbered, right? Signed commitment letters are also a requirement, and the dollars that you're deploying cannot go directly to startups. And just as a reminder, match really should be easily traceable to the budget narrative. Now let's discuss program alignment and if you're aligned with the mission of Build to Scale. For 2020, we had 3 challenges. The Venture Challenge, which seeks to support entrepreneurship and accelerate company growth in communities, regions, or a combination of regions. The Capital Challenge, which seeks to increase access to capital in communities where risk capital is in short supply. And finally, the Industry Challenge, which seeks to support entrepreneurship and accelerate company growth within the blue economy. And the Industry Challenge was unique for 2020. It will likely not be the blue economy for 2021. And a key centralizing factor to all of these challenges is they're all under the Build to Scale umbrella, which has a mission focused on building regional economies through scalable startups. So some common issues that were identified through reviewer feedback, we are going to review. And just as a reminder, each application was reviewed by 3 reviewers. So common issue number 1 was disorganized proposals. So that could mean using multiple pages to discuss the service area, but not how you're going to do things. Submitting a draft that still had edits that needed to be incorporated, lacking details on how a strategy would be executed, speaking in generalities with not a lot of information on detail, or having a budget narrative that was not related to the application or really hard to understand within the context of the application. So your application should always be clear and concise, and it should be really well aligned to your budget. And next we have applications that weren't aligned with the build to scale mission, again, which is building regional economies through scalable startups. So some examples of that could be programs that supported small business, but not scalable businesses, or that did not address how they were going to help those small businesses become scalable businesses. So just not really speaking to that scalability factor. And then within the capital challenge, we had some submissions that didn't support risk capital or focused more on programmatic style activities that would have been a better fit for the venture challenge. And next, support letters were also flagged as a common issue this year. Problems with those included copy-paste letters that did not have a lot, that had limited or no mention of programmatic activities, match letters that contained no value assessed to the match, which is actually a disqualifier, or that weren't aligned at all to the project narrative, or proposed partners or stakeholders that weren't aligned with the proposed project. Oh, and I apologize, I see a typo on that slide. Sorry about that. With partnerships, really quality versus quantity is preferable. So rather than having, a million partnerships, it's really great to concentrate and have really great support letters and alignment to your application for those handful of really key partners that are going to help you implement. And this slide is really targeted for former grantees, which is a common issue that was identified was redundancy, which would be reapplying for the same activity. So applicants requesting funding for a similar project that was previously funded, or having prior performance issues on the first grant, or even some that were just not eligible due to having a current active grant, which is actually just a disqualifier. If you're a former grantee who's applying, the proposal should really clearly build on past work or gains, and that can mean doing something different. So that can mean taking the lessons you learned from your first grant and even pivoting in another direction, but really addressing, hey, we had this funding and this is how we're going to build upon it, or this is what we learned to help us, pivot away. These are some gains we got out of it, but it does kind of build on previous work. So that kind of summarizes the feedback on the 2020 applications this year. And there are going to be future opportunities through the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So first up, we have the STEM Talent Challenge, which is actually currently available and closes very soon. It closes on October 14th. It's a $2 million total challenge. It's the first year we're doing it, although we do hope to run this again in 2021, and is really focused on creating and implementing STEM apprenticeship models that complement your region's innovation economy. So I think that will really be of a lot of interest to several of you. And of course, we are anticipating Build to Scale 2021. So pending appropriations, Build to Scale will return in early 2021, and it will have, or at least we anticipate, very similar investment goals and priorities for that next competition. So I know several of you may still be interested in continuing the conversation with our office, and we do have some next steps that we would like you to follow before we schedule those calls. So in order to schedule a one-on-one call, we request that you complete the following steps. You watch this webinar fully. You reread your Build to Scale application in its entirety, including the budget documents. Really cannot emphasize that enough. You also have members of your leadership team participate in the call. It does not need to be your full leadership team, but it does need to be some of the membership of those, whoever you think is really key to this grant. We will not do calls with just grant writers. I do want to emphasize that. We do want to have the team involved in those calls. We are not going to do them with just a grant writer who submitted. And then we also ask that you, having reread your application and looked at your budget, you identify the areas of strengths and weaknesses that you see in your application in advance of the call. We also ask that you please be understanding of the limitations on staff schedules to speak one-on-one. As you saw at the top, we had 609 concept proposals. We had 148 full applications. So that's a lot of folks who potentially would like to do a one-on-one call for feedback. So again, we ask that you complete all of these steps and then just be patient with us as we schedule these one-on-one calls. So that will conclude today's webinar. If you have any initial questions, our contact link is listed below, and that will show you how to get in contact with us. We'll be happy to answer those, and we're just so appreciative of your interest in the program and hope you'll consider reapplying again in 2021. Again, thanks very much for your time and have a great day.